Hi there and welcome to episode 164 of the ADHD Adults podcast. It doesn't get better, it will never get better, and I'm sure you don't care. I'm James Brown, the man who last attended a social event in 1814 to celebrate a new siring, and I'm joined, as usual, by Dr. Alex Connor, who would happily attend social events. He just doesn't get invited to them, and Mrs AuDHD, who used to mask at social events by actually being herself. Alex, hi.
Hi, Hydrophobia. Hydrophobia. That must be like social phobia for fish. Do you think, James? Because they live in the water and that hydrophobia, like rabies.
Have you ever considered this isn't the platform for you?
We're doing social phobia.
We are doing social phobia, Alex. We are. My God. How are you both, Mrs AuDHD, ADHD first?
Confused. Oh, I've just realised my thing's backwards. How do I fix that? It doesn't matter, I suppose.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
And how about you?
No.
That's
and
what people do.
Alex.
Yeah, they do. Excellent. Thank you both. We demanded the Metrics guy got us the numbers of listeners after the demand avoidance episode, and he's avoided us. Actually, he has replied. Sorry, take it back. He says, please don't use serious medical conditions as the basis of a cheap joke. Thank you. Sorry.
Well, that's this podcast fuck then.
It really is. Please write to James at alexspureheart.adhd.com. One of whom has sent us a letter.
This gets less relevant as we age.
That's right.
You know.
That's right, James. It does. It's from Robert from Kidderminster. It says, I listened to your episode on demand avoidance, and I had a really good joke about James avoiding demands for sex by never having sex. But Tarquin, the Metrics guy, is really shit all over this bit, saying we can't make cheap jokes. It's a woke nightmare, Robert. Sorry about that. Can't do anything. We've had a real letter. It's from a Bill from Bourneville. I'm not sure I believe it.
Bourneville!
I think they're lying. Well, maybe they are. Can I read it out?
No.
Yeah.
It says, just listen to the latest podcast on school, like 8 years ago, and can totally relate to a lot of that. In senior school, 5th year, old school, 1988, I had a report from my form teacher, who also taught me for maths, which said, William, because it's Bill, tries very hard to do nothing all day. He's disruptive and never completes any work. He'll never amount to anything. Signed, Mrs. E. Hughes from Bourneville School. Oh, no, they actually are from Bourneville. Well, if I could meet her now as an adult, was diagnosed with both autism and ADHD 2 years ago, age 50, in parentheses, James. I'd both like to punch her in the nose to make it bloody, wipe it dry with my first class honours Bachelor of Education, say fuck you, it says it's got X in, I don't know why, and then shake her hand because her form report helped me get classed along with other reports that year. I was one of the Bourneville degenerates in rabbit ears, James, as having ADHD. I went to see the Bourneville Degenerates at Glasgow in 85. I did not. Thank you for the podcast. No, I love all the episodes, but it did bring back that autistic rage when listening, as I have amounted to something. I just couldn't sit still for an hour while learning trig with a protractor that I forgot to bring and the P-kit that was missing my right or left sock. Great podcast, and I'm grateful to you all for the much needed, in parentheses, James, humour among the fog that is ADHD. Best wishes, Bill the Bourneville Degenerate. Amazing.
I'd love that. Bill. How do you know, Alex? How do you know I've not been away and learned grammar during the break that we had?
Yeah, that's true. That might have been why we had a break.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, obviously. Anyway,
I have been learning French and German grammar.
Good.
Of course, I have.
As usual, this tiny little short-ass bell end of a physical fitness instructor who probably has a micro-penis of a podcast is a tragedy in 3 parts. We choose a theme. That was written a while back because obviously we were meant to record this ages ago. We choose a theme. Last time around was about ADHD and demand avoidance. And this week we're going to be discussing ADHD and social phobia, sometimes known also as social anxiety disorder. Thanks to Purple Haze for suggesting the topic. I'm not giving me any Purple Haze. I would like some. The 3 parts include the Ollie Plimsolls of evidence, Alex the Psycho.
What's Purple Haze and what are Ollie Plimsolls? What do these things mean? This is like that
Purple
band
Haze
you made up earlier.
Purple Haze is what? Sultans of Pink.
Yeah. Just make up band names to
They're a
confuse
real,
me.
they were a real band.
Agree
Just
to
for
disagree.
context, I was referring to us as an indie podcast, but if we were an indie band, it wouldn't be anyone good. It would be the Sultans of fucking Ping.
Which you made up.
Purple Haze is a strain of cannabis, Alex, and Ollie Plimsolls was one of the characters from Legs Akimbo on the League of Gentlemen who had the phrase "put yourself in a child." So the 3 parts include the Ollie Plimsolls of evidence, Alex the Psycho, Education Monkey talking about the evidence around the topic. And in part 2, we give our personal reflections and trumpet some spunk about social phobia, not what it says in the script. And then we'll answer some of your questions sent in the final section, as Alex recently said, because we don't have to write anything for that bit anymore.
Not that recently.
Not that recently, no. So, Alex,
I
know you're phobic of society and its norms on human trophy hunting. Tell us about ADHD and social phobia.
I will, thank you. All right. Social phobia, also known as social anxiety disorder, a chronic mental health condition characterized by intense, persistent fear of being watched and judged by others. This fear can affect, obviously, anybody at work, school, any environment really where an individual is exposed to possible scrutiny by others, possible being the operative word here. So it wouldn't be, for example, at one of James's little talks because no one's going to be there. Just see what I done a thing.
That was really good. Well done.
Thank you. The Big Book of Special Mental Health Disorders, the DSM-5, classes social phobia as an anxiety disorder. We did demand avoidance last time, which isn't classed as one, I think, isn't it, in the DSM-5, but this one is. And they give some specific examples, including social interactions, having a conversation, just meeting unfamiliar people, being observed eating or drinking, performing in front of others, e.g. dogging in Cannock Chase. Or...
I'm fine with that one.
Yeah, it's weird that was in the DSM-5, I think. I mean, they know Cannock pretty well. The criteria of social phobia is that social situations almost always provoke fear or anxiety. That's not the same as a bit of anticipation, a bit of stress. It's almost always. The fear or anxiety is out of proportion to any actual threat posed or how the social situation is, or even the socio-cultural context. It's extreme and out of proportion. That social situations are going to be avoided or endured with intense fear and anxiety. So I don't like them often that much, or if I have to be there, but you can deal with it if you haven't got this. It's not the same thing. So the fear or anxiety of or avoidance has to be clinically significant distress or cause clinically significant distress or impairment in your social, your occupational, any other important area of your personal functioning. There's loads of criteria, but to be honest, we got bored reading them. You get the idea. However, this condition often begins in the early to mid-teens. A lot of people will relate. It can start, though, in younger children, and it can start in adults as well.
Is it really common, Al? Does it affect many people other than me, obviously?
Yeah, you really do have this. Are you going with a new accent? I like it. Is it Yorkshire, Lancashire?
It was something vaguely northern. Sorry, northern people.
Yes, James. Social phobia affects millions and millions of people worldwide. Estimates suggest that approximately 7% of American adults experience social phobia in any given year, not always the same people. Prevalence is higher for females, 8% than males, 6.1%, whatever that means to the people writing the papers. Of those who have, not the numbers, they're all the same. I meant male and female. Of those who have social phobia, an estimated 30% have serious impairment. Nearly 40% moderate impairment, and about a third have mild impairment. So broadly split into thirds. Social phobia also often comes with its old friends, depression, 20% of those people, substance use disorder, hello, nearly 20%, generalized anxiety disorder, 5% of them. Can I make fun of my own? Is that making fun of
Yes,
myself?
of course you can. You own it, Alex. You own it.
Please do.
My own. I will. Panic disorder and PTSD, about 3%.
Wow. I'm hoping this is going to be a short answer, but how is it diagnosed and treated?
There is one short answer, James, which is not very well. if you believe
Is
the
that it
NICE
then? Can you just
guidelines.
stop there and then we can go to part
Oh,
two?
imagine, wouldn't that be good? If you believe in the NICE guidelines, not that well, recognition of social anxiety disorder by your primary care, your GP or so on, is often poor in the first place. Part this may stem from GPs not being trained to recognise that disorder, lack of clarity in what the care pathway should look like. There is also pessimism in some GPs about the outcomes of that treatment, the possible treatment outcomes, despite the fact there are some effective treatments, and it can be hard to help in the first place. From a patient's perspective, lots of stigma of social phobia can contribute a lot to under-recognition. People don't feel able to seek help in many cases. When it is diagnosed, treatment is, this might be familiar to you as well, therapy, medication, or a combination of both. Common treatments are the CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that we know about, learning to challenge and neutralize those negative thoughts, hopefully to change the feelings and behaviors that come with those. Practicing your social skills, is in gradually more challenging and complex situations. Exposure therapy, which is similar to that, it's a subtype of CDP, so gradual, repeated exposure to the source of your fear, which is how we started this podcast, James. Absolutely terrified of you, I am, because you're a monster. I've got a pure heart.
Evil. Yes.
In this case, social environments, and that can, in some people, help reduce anxiety over time. Medications typically would be the antidepressants, SSRIs and SNRIs, commonly prescribed, other anti-anxiety medications and beta blockers and so on. They are there to help manage the symptoms of anxiety. They don't really deal with the root cause.
So just imagine, like a thought experiment, Al, there's a person who hasn't sought help because of the stigma that's attached to this. So how do people that you might know this person vaguely, how do people who don't seek help because of that stigma manage it? I can tell you I fucking do, but how do they generally manage it then?
Excellent question, James, as always. Wait, Al, you've changed the script. That said shite question. It definitely did.
It was.
Right. If you don't recognise that you have it, social phobia, or you don't seek support for understandable reasons of stigma, or you might self-treat social phobia by just avoiding social situations, or by the same way I treated my ADHD, in a very healthy abuse of alcohol and drugs to try to reduce their anxiety. That latter approach is a really common way that you're going to lead to substance use disorder, like what I've got, and they do that for social phobia. So that
no one's trodden on my bit. And ADHD.
Oh,
how
excited he is! Oh,
I really meant to ruin it for him, Sam. I'm really disappointed. I love pissing on his bonfire. Ding. Well, James, rubbish question as always. ADHD often coexists with many of the anxiety disorders, and sociophobia is no exception. I can't do this anymore. It's offensive. Although there are very few studies that have looked into it. Of course, there aren't. Research indicates there is a high prevalence of social phobia among individuals with ADHD compared to the normos. I love the word normals for people with, because it's offensive to us and it's just wrong to the general population. There was a study called the National Comorbidity Survey Replication Study, the NCSRS, and that's not helpful. And social phobia was the most prevalent form of anxiety that coexisted with ADHD. Nearly 30% of ADHDers having social phobia at some point in their lifetime. However, and it's a big but, in lots of small studies, the suggested rates of social phobia range. Some of them say 3%, one said a whopping 46.7% approximately in adults with ADHD. And get this, in adults with social phobia, about 3/4 of those may be experiencing ADHD as well. If you look in the other direction, not literally, Sam, the one study suggested that 62% of patients with social phobia had ADHD, which is a lot less than that. And those that did were predominantly the inattentive type, interestingly for me.
I feel that you partly answered my question about the thing, but how does it impact social phobia? How does it impact adults with ADHD? Because we are, after all, supposedly an adult ADHD podcast, you dickhead.
There's no need for that.
There isn't.
It complicates everything, doesn't it? Diagnosis and treatment. If you're dealing with anxiety, when you look at what they have to do, they have to treat the anxiety first. That's what they always say. But if ADHD causes anxiety, it's a right old shit show doing that and doesn't work. Yes, both diagnosis and treatment are exacerbated and complicated by both ADHD and social phobia. Got ADHD and you've got social phobia, it might stem from repeated negative social experiences, that, as in the social phobia might. So being criticised for impulsive behaviour, facing difficulties in social situations due to attention issues. I think that's what mine is. I don't think I've got any of the biological social phobia at all. The combination of ADHD with social phobia has or can have massive impact on your life. Educational opportunities, occupational opportunities, social relationships, overall quality of life. Really, what we are is social creatures, right? And if that is crippling for you, of course it's going to affect every aspect of who you are. If you've got both conditions, you're likely to experience a high level of impairment in your social functioning. There is some evidence that ADHD treatment can, not necessarily does, help with some elements of social phobia. One study suggests that atomoxetine, that's the non-stimulant one, we don't talk about a lot, do we? That seemed to improve both ADHD and social phobia symptoms. But as usual, mo research, mo needed.
Beautifully delivered, Alex. Wonderful.
Well
I'm now
done.
thrilled for part 2 of this, where we can basically talk about what my life's been like for the last 49 years. So we'll see you in a bit.
Bye.
No.
Yeah.
Alex, hi.
Aight. What's up? Hello, Governor.
Welcome back to episode 164 of the ADHD Adults Podcast. We did one last week. This is amazing. We've done 2 in 2 weeks.
No, it wasn't last week.
Talking about ADHD and social phobia.
Fact.
False. We're talking, I've got very specific social phobia, Sam. Do you want to know what that is?
No.
As always, sort of, in part 2, we're doing personal reflections of social phobia and giving our tips, which will be, and I can't stress this enough, shite. James, personal reflections of, let's face it, your entire life, social phobia. In the words of Sam, go!
Yeah.
We in the very short break in between part 1 and this part, I started saying stuff and Sam said, no, save it for the next bit. And she was right. Oh my fucking God. My entire life in social situations has been driven by social phobia, but I didn't know what it was. And it was only when I was writing an online workshop about ADHD and anxiety, and I was doing some research into the various different anxiety disorders, and I thought, oh yeah, this is interesting, and I'll read more. And when I realized it's not, as I thought it was, a fear of being in crowds of people, for example, a fear of being in social settings, but it was that specific aspect of being judged, being observed. Everything made sense. The fact that throughout my whole life, I've never, ever been able to attend weddings, work functions, conferences, kind of meetings, anywhere where people can kind of see me, judge me, either without copious amounts of cocaine or without immediately leaving. Now, I used to, Alec, I think, Alec, have we ever been to a conference together? Because obviously we used to go to a lot of conferences. I can't remember if we ever did.
I think
I don't
we
think we
did,
did,
yeah,
did
but
we?
neither of us used to go for
I
different reasons.
used to go to 3-day conferences and leave after the first hour because I couldn't bear it. And then I'd just sit in my hotel room and do nothing for 3 days because it had been paid for by the university. The amount of times where I've been at a wedding, including yours, Al, and had to self-medicate because it's an overwhelming feeling of anxiety, and I have to get away. I can't be here. And the one word that I thought you mentioned in the first part that was really powerful, I think you said avoided or endured events, and it's that enduring events. On the very rare occasion where I've not been able to access a substance to self-medicate with, or if I've been to an event where I kind of have to go and I can't leave, oh my God, it's so painful. And Sam, we would go to a work Christmas do, and I'd just be saying every half an hour, can we go in a bit? And Sam's having a dance, saying yeah. And half an hour later, I'd say, you said we could go in a bit, and that would just be repeated every half an hour until we could finally go home. Painful social situations as a younger man, kind of masking like fuck until I discovered how cheap cocaine was. Now, I think there's two things that I think are interesting about this.
Really expensive.
There's two things that I think are interesting about this. The first is I don't get this about the little talks, and that is clearly an opportunity to be judged. Standing on a stage in front of people is a massive exposure, but I have zero social phobia about that. Yeah, I'll give it you. Ding.
Ding.
But if I was going to watch somebody talk or an event, I get social phobia. Sam and I recently went to see, was it the David Bowie Experience? And even that,
Yes.
I was really, really struggling. Hi, Gemma, by the way.
Is that Derek's brother?
It is, yeah. I was really struggling beforehand and kind of almost didn't want to be there. And it's only when the lights went down, Al, and people couldn't really see me, that I settled down and calmed down. The other thing that I think, sorry, your hand was up and I'm not meant to acknowledge that, am I? But carry on.
No, and I didn't realise you. I just wanted to ask you how it feels, because I don't, as you know, I don't have it at all. And intellectually, you're a clever guy, sort of. Well, for Kidderminster, and so they're not watching you, they're not talking about you, they don't care about you. You know that intellectually. So that emotional fear, is it just a massive dichotomy in your brain? Two thoughts existing opposite each other?
They don't exist. In that moment, the rational brain is so overwhelmed by the emotional brain that I cannot think. Of course, they're not judging me. I'm here with a group of people who are all here to celebrate somebody's wedding, or I'm here with a group of people who are here to celebrate it's Christmas and we all work in the same department. All I can think is, all I can hear is this screaming voice saying, "Get out! Get out! This isn't safe." And that's a big thing. It's about safety. And I've said this before on the podcast. And when I realised that I could walk away from events and not be at events, that was one of the biggest empowerments I've had. It was really, sadly, because I love him to bits, it was Sam's brother, the Beast's wedding. And I'd been absolutely fine until kind of a silly little kind of comment was made by somebody, and all of a sudden I had to get out, and I didn't want to tell anybody, so I went and sat outside with Sam's other brother, Gaz, and then said, I'm just going to go for a walk around the grounds, and just left and just walked away. But every step I took away from that venue, the pressure just lifted, the anxiety lifted, and I felt amazing, realizing I don't have to be in a place. If I don't feel safe in a place, then I can just walk away. You can walk away from anything. The other thing that I think is interesting, that I think is relevant, and that is I genuinely believe wholeheartedly this is tied into RSD. I don't see how it can't be tied into RSD. And therefore, if you think about the fact that rejection sensitivity often drives our behavior, and if you think about the number of adults with ADHD who have rejection sensitivity, I think the levels of social phobia are probably much higher in ADHD than those statistics that you read out in part one suggest. I just think that people don't know what social phobia is.
That's a good show.
Yeah.
In terms of my shitty tip, Al, it's what I said about it's what I said about it's what I said about the Beast's wedding. It's self-consent to not have to be somewhere. You don't have to be at certain events. If it's your own wedding, probably, but you don't have to be there, and you can walk away if you don't feel safe.
Seriously, James, how does it feel knowing that a lot of people like me always feel like that? We never feel. I never feel like I have to be anywhere.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think now that I've realised that, it doesn't feel that jarring. If you'd have said that the day before the Beast wedding, then I'd have said, "What do you mean? Of course you have to have obligations. We have obligations to be places. Of course we have to be there."
I don't know how. I mean, it's similar to some of the things I feel, but it sounds so difficult to live with on the daily basis. Absolutely horrible.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of events we've missed because of it, and not knowing that is what it is,
and the shame of it, and the guilt.
Exactly. Anyway, that's enough about me. What about you, Sam?
So,
Yeah, I didn't realise I had this until
Really?
you were going. Yeah, honestly,
Hey?
which which is ridiculous actually, because I literally shit myself constantly for 2 weeks, constantly before any event and all during the event. It has such a physical
Ding.
impact on me, the anxiety, if I'm going to any social event at all. And it's
Wow.
because of I know that I have issues with the communication and I will misunderstand people or they will misunderstand me. I know that I've got a lack of self-control. I know that I don't have control over my impulses and the dancing, when you mentioned dancing, that's one of the things that's one of my coping mechanisms. I don't have to speak to people when I'm dancing. So I'm the first one up on the dance floor and I will dance until you drag me away, because that is one of my coping mechanisms. And yes, I would use alcohol and drugs to make me feel less anxious. It didn't really work. I was still shitting myself. I still felt anxious. I did lots of exposure therapy with CBT, which did help me. Antidepressants helped me a little bit, but not much. ADHD meds have helped a little bit, but not a great deal. And when I think back to things like Virgin, I worked for Virgin twice. The second time I thought I'll work for them again, because the first time I just hid in my room every trip and I want to actually enjoy it. And I got the job again and I just hid in my room again because I just couldn't face going out and I'd just hide. And like you were saying, what has helped me the most is realizing, being honest and saying, I actually really don't feel comfortable. I don't like parties. I don't like going to weddings. I don't like going to hen dos. And it makes me feel ill and I get physically ill and I don't want to do it anymore. And that's what's helped me the most. But this is something that I really struggle with.
And is it the same with you?
And thank you, Gemma and Charlie, by the way. Sorry for the Bowie experience.
Who are
Sorry.
they? Who are those people?
They
They
invited
are
us along to the Derek
musicians, yeah.
Bowie experience,
Oh, I
and they
see.
were amazing. It was
They
at the
were.
Alex Al, where I took you and I took James in the lounge where we
Ding.
sat, where it was all romantic.
Yeah, it was romantic.
It was.
What is it the same as it is for James, Sam? That you think people are looking at you? Because I know that's hard for people to
No,
admit.
so that when you were saying that, so I'm not conscious of that, but I'm conscious of past experiences where I've done things wrong, and I'm worried that I will do things wrong again.
Right.
Just to, I suppose, clarify, which apparently is all I ever fucking say. Sam
You
pointed
do,
out on
yeah.
AD.
Just to clarify.
There wasn't for me always a conscious knowledge that it's the being judged that drives the
No.
anxiety. It took a long time for me to realize that sitting on a table at a wedding with there's 10 people and they're all going to ask me questions about what I do and make judgments on me. It wasn't until probably kind of in my 40s that I realized it was about judgment. I just thought I can't deal with these events. I didn't know what it was about these events I couldn't deal with, but I just knew I couldn't deal with them.
That's so true, actually. Remember when we went to Neil's wedding and we had to leave early because I was a wreck, because everybody around our table was talking about what they all did at uni. And I didn't want to join in because it would point out to everybody around the table that I was the only one there that hadn't been to uni, and it was destroying me. And we came out and I was hysterical because I felt like even more of a failure than I already did. So there must be, but I'm not consciously thinking that I'm going to be judged, but there must be that somewhere in the background. You're right. I hadn't thought of that.
I'm judging you all the time.
Always, yeah, I know I'm fully aware of that, but I don't care about your opinion at all.
It's of little or no
It
consequence.
doesn't matter to me.
I think this needs more care and attention than it's getting, because it's quite nice not having this, because I can give it the sympathy that I can't give to ADHD because I've got that. But with this, and you guys need to know that when I'm in a social situation, I am, of course, I'm masked up. Everyone knows I've got pretend alcoholism, but it isn't for that reason. If I'm at a wedding, I'm around a table, I'm saying, "Oh, what do you do? Oh, that's interesting. That's better than me." I don't feel anything like that. I'm quite happy, like a little
but you're
Labrador.
not like me. Imagine if you'd never been to university and you're thick as pig shit.
I can't. What's it like? Is it like being
exactly.
a dog?
So maybe if you were like that, you would feel like that.
Maybe. No, but it isn't real. It isn't real because I know there's self-esteem issues, but when I'm with, my wife's she was a a musician for good orchestra, and I'd be around these people that are well-known people and all at the table, and I was just a dick and didn't know, had no skills in their area whatsoever. Didn't give a shit. I just don't feel that like you two do, and but like a lot of people do, and that it's important to acknowledge that. In the same way that when I speak to my friends who haven't got ADHD, their normalness is quite jarring to me, and it's a good. It demonstrates to me that this is real, that my ADHD is real.
Sorry, you've got friends that don't have ADHD.
Not friends, captives.
Oh, right, fair enough.
I haven't tested them. I'll do that. Yeah, I have one or two, and it's the same thing that. When we were at conferences, James, I didn't go because I don't like sitting down and listening to talks. But I would leave my room every single moment there was a social event to just go to that. And that's the difference. Love that. And I would talk about the science, and I would read about it, and I would share ideas. And then as soon as some daft old bastard was droning on again for an hour, I would leave. And that's ADHD, not social phobia. And that for me is the massive difference. No time for the game. Shall we move on?
Yeah, let's move on to the game. So I believe the score is something like 14-7. It's just getting embarrassing now, Alex. So I think this might be a gimme. Now, I have what is possibly the world's worst system for organising and taking my medication. And I'll just explain it quickly. What I do, Alex, is I sit on the toilet with the toilet seat down, backwards, facing the cistern, with the medication with the medication on the cistern and on the window ledge above it, because there's several different containers, while I get medications out and put them into the little daily pill containing.
Oh gosh, I forgot about the daily pill containing plastic containers.
It's not a great system, is it? Because we have tables and chairs throughout the house, but this is how I do it, and I got it wrong, really bad, obviously. So you've got three options as usual. Did I A, drop tablets on the floor next to the shitter, which isn't a particularly clean part of the house, and then still take them? Did I your face then did I two just randomly start taking tablets from the wrong days and then get confused as to where I was with my boxes of tablets? Or have I, three, lost Wednesday's box, and this now means I seem to have a complete inability to fill the other boxes?
Oh, that's
I've
really
done all
good.
of those things.
Yeah, my way of filling them is by shaking the bottle from quite far away with them all opening and see if I can get one in each one instead of pairs.
That's a really good method.
That's all I can do. I don't think you dropped it on the floor next to the toilet. One, because you keep a very clean house, and two, because you would have texted me the word pisdexamphetamine within about 3 seconds. I've taken pisdexamphetamine, you would have said, and I know you would. I don't think you you tricked yourself here. You said you took it on the wrong day on the second one, but you're asleep in the day in your little coffin, so you would have said night. So you lost Wednesdays, and then you completely fucked yourself.
No, you're wrong.
Oh.
I did drop the tablets on the floor right next to the shitter and picked them up, dusted them off, and took them straight away.
You didn't text me.
But the problem is, Al, I can't share everything. So, for example, you know about me obviously shitting myself recently on the weight loss injection repeatedly. Yeah. But I didn't want to tell you because I thought that could be a good one. But I have to meter out what I tell you in these conversations to hold something back. So, again, you lose. That makes it something like 15-7. I don't know. But it's a cheery note to end part 2, and we'll be back for part 3 in just a sec.
Piss shit game. No.
Trumpet.
Welcome back to 100 episode what? Oh, fucking hell! I was convinced I was going to fucking nail that.
Just keep going.
Welcome back to episode 164 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we're talking about ADHD and social phobia, which apparently I have. I've got a question here from Julie. This is weird. Do you know anything about suicide rates and people with ADHD? Is this a thing? Yeah, it is. Yeah. I can appreciate it must be difficult to assess properly. I think my son might have had I think my son might have had ADHD. I attended one of your C talks in Cardiff last night. That was an eye-opener and quite emotional for me to sit through. And then it's a crying face. on the side, but smiling and laughing. I can see ADHD all around me now. I think my other half must have it, but it's my granddaughter, who is 8, that I'm more aware of and concerned for now. Thank you so much. Kiss. Oh, yeah. I think lots of people that come along to talks realise that everybody they know has got it.
That's really tough.
Do you
Thanks,
want
Julie.
to take this, Al?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the implication in that letter is really horrific, Julian. If it is, I'm really sorry. What I will say is, yeah, we're really aware, and people we know have been through this, because I think all three of us have talked a little bit about suicidal ideations in the past. I'm probably the one that has had it the least, but not 0, which is kind of the optimum number of suicidal ideations. But yes, we absolutely know. Yeah, it's not. And I wouldn't win if it bloody was. That's weird. I made it weird. And we know that the numbers are really high. So it's higher in women, both suicidality and suicides themselves, but it's still different estimates, of course. But I think James' last one we read, was it 5 times, 6 times higher in people with ADHD, untreated, unsupported?
Yeah.
And I think I'm right. I'd have to check the paper. I think I'm right that treated and supported ADHD, it comes back down to the same as the average person in the normo population. Is that what you read as well? I'm
not sure about the treated and supported, but I did the 5% more likely to attempt suicide during their lifetime. There, that's I think a robust stat that's been looked at in a number of different studies.
So if you are aware, and sorry, James, if you're aware and concerned for a child in your life, just having these conversations openly, like I do with my kids, like I wish had happened to me, it can help. That's all you can do. There's nothing else. Get support. Sorry, James.
No need to apologise. I don't care what you do ever. I think what an important thing to point out is that, remember, we often have comorbidities or coexisting conditions, and the people with ADHD that have a coexisting mood disorder, whether it's major depressive disorder or bipolar, etc., I would imagine are more likely to be the people who are attempting suicide. So this is one of the problems with science, particularly big population science. You take a big group, you take the mean or the median, the average, and you compare it to another group, and then you come out with a number. And that doesn't mean we are all more likely to attempt suicide. It just means roughly on average. My experiences with suicidal ideation, I think most people obviously who know me know, I've probably mentioned it on the podcast before, but particularly during the break, which we didn't have for 3 months between podcast episodes, I made one attempt at my life and taking my life, and made actually probably one of the funniest, if there is such a thing, attempts at ending my life, because I
save that for.
I think I think he knows.
Oh,
so
okay.
I got to the point when I was in such a bad place during the break, and this was specifically after receiving comments and hate emails and stuff, and I was already in a bad place. But that just pushed me to the point where I packed a bag, booked train tickets, worked out where I was going to go, and that was the plan. The funny bit is I packed 6 pairs of pants in the bag, which is more pants than I took to Lanzarote for a week. I don't think I was thinking clearly, but
do you think
this? Yeah, but this is something that's obviously very personal to me. It's for all of us, because the charity that we run, and particularly Sam, who has seen many emails from parents of people who are donating money in memory of their teenagers or their adolescents who have ended their lives. It's something I get very upset about. Not my personal experience, obviously, because I don't give a fuck about myself. But when we do hear about people in our community that do take their own life, it just makes me so angry at the system, angry at the lack of support that people have. So what I would say, Judy, your granddaughter, who is 8, is hopefully not going to have the same experience that we have had. And if you look at these statistics, 5 times more likely, research by definition is the past. And therefore, that is what has happened in the past. It doesn't have to be the future. If this NHS England ADHD task force makes headway, if the government start to improve funding for diagnosis, treatment, and support, the future doesn't have to be the same. And I would really hope that by the time your granddaughter is really in her teens, that we're in a better situation when it comes to support, whether that's assessment, whether that's diagnosis, treatment, etc. This doesn't have to be the future.
Yeah, that's really important. And get help. You know, you can self-refer for talking therapies through the NHS if you live in the UK. You can visit the NHS 111 online or ring 111 to get access to your urgent mental health service. And then obviously there's loads of services like the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, Shout, Samaritans, Sane Line, Campaign Against Living Miserably. I won't list them all, but there's lots of services out there that can help. Please get help.
Can I just quickly add something?
Yes.
You okay, Sam?
Yeah.
When I packed the 6 pairs of pants into a bag, the reason I did that was because I'd realised that I didn't want Sam to come home to me in that situation. And I'm very lucky that a week before our lovely sessions, Pat that does the music and transitions and the remixes largely of Sam, let's face it, had made me promise, and really vociferously made me promise, that if I ever got into that situation, I just had to message him to tell him what I was doing, not for him to talk me out of it, just to message him. So we had a good chat and we worked out we would use a messaging service that I only had him as a contact on. And while I was in this planning stage, I just sent him a message, and it immediately broke this calm spell of what I was doing. And it is a good tip that is often given. People talk about having a picture of your loved ones in your wallet or purse, but having at least one person that you can tell that this is where you are can be it probably saved my life, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
So that can
And
be
then
a
when
really,
he did
really
turn
useful
up
tool.
unannounced to visit you, I told him off for doing that because I'm a dickhead. And I was like, never turn up here unannounced. You know, I can't cope with unexpected things. I had no idea the severity of what was going on with James, and I had no idea that Pat was helping him in that way. So thank you, Pat. I'm sorry, I'm a dick.
I'm sorry, she's a dick as well. Next up, the Bangles with Manic Monday. I feel like it needed...
It needed bringing back up.
I got to read another letter out. If it's depressing, I'm leaving.
All right, then. Oh.
No, I'm only joking. We talk about these things all the time, and I don't think most people do. We have these feelings, and they're real, aren't they? Right.
Yes, true. Yeah, that's true. We talk about them as if they're just normal things, and for everybody, they're not. Yeah, that's true.
This is from Liz. It says, can you ask James stop being so miserable? It doesn't. I made that up. It says, could you say something about the idea of ADHD as a developmental disorder, and particularly a developmental delay? Great question, because I don't love the term. It always confused me too, Liz, because I always viewed my ADHD as just about my brain not doing the stuff I wanted it to, rather than being about a process of development. But anecdotally, I realised I did have a bit of a shift in my mid to late 30s. I'm still really chaotic with the usual problems with focus. Around that time, I became less impulsive, less prone to making disastrous life choices, and a bit more capable of using strategies to cope with my symptoms. Now I'm in my 40s. It's not like I'm cured by any stretch of the imagination, but I can address it a bit better. That will probably soon go to crap with perimenopause around the corner. I love Sam's input on that. Thank you. I have heard that for most people, the prefrontal cortex still developing well into their 20s. Could the changes that I experienced around 35 to 40 be a delayed version of that? I know we talk about ADHD folk having shoddy prefrontal cortices. Thought Alex would appreciate the plural. I really did. It's because it's from the Latin, James.
Fucking fair play, Liz. Fair play.
Oh, that's brilliant. But are they delayed in development too? If so, could that be potential good news for younger ADHDers? I could talk about this too long, James, so can you do it instead?
Yeah. And if I get it wrong at any point, please feel free to not interrupt me and tell me that I've got it wrong, Alex.
Imagine me not interrupting.
So we know that in children with ADHD, on average, there is a difference in structure and function of the prefrontal cortex. In children, around 5% smaller, the prefrontal cortex is. But by the time children with ADHD reach adulthood, they generally have caught up. It does take 20 to 25 years for a human brain to fully develop. And we do have a neurodevelopmental delay. So that process is often delayed in adolescents with ADHD. Alex, can you remember? Is it something like between 3 and 5 years on average in terms of developmental stages, something like that?
Yes, there's papers that extend it to 2 to 7 years, but 3 to 5 is a typical one, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. So I think now, bear in mind that I think we did an episode on neuroplasticity, didn't we? Bearing in mind that the brain is not finished by the time you're 20 or 25, it's just developed and it can change. I would think it's probably unlikely that changes experienced around 35 to 40 would be developmental. They may be caused by a different issue, but I am happy to be challenged by Sam, but not Alex.
Ding. I don't know. I don't. What I do know is that those symptoms do tend to reduce on average in people with ADHD as we age, and some people report it's because they've learned coping strategies. Some people think it might be biological. Some of those symptoms get internalized. I don't love the word developmental delay because even though we catch up, as James rightly says, the wires that are fired together. Wire together? What's this phrase? The what's that?
Birds flock like birds of a feather.
Yeah, exactly. That's it exactly. So it never actually catches up and is the same because we are neurodivergent. We are different forever, even if
birds of a feather flock together. I don't know what it means, but I think that's it.
Birds on a wire. Something about a fire.
The line broke.
Neurons that fire together, wire together. That's the real one.
Right.
And broadly, it means that because it's different as we've developed, and it isn't just a delay, definitely not just that, then it never really is going to, even though it's mature, the shape of the neurons bundled and the way they all interact is probably going to look and act. In fact, we know it is different forever. Funnily enough, somebody asked me this yesterday on a course they were running, and exactly the same question, because it's very confusing for people what that means.
Liz?
No, it was Sally.
Oh, okay.
Different person. There's more than one person.
Oh.
They're like birds of a feather.
Oh.
So when Liz says, is that good news or potential good news for younger ADHDers? It's really interesting because I struggle with coaching people with ADHD who are quite very young adults, because in my head, I think back and I wasn't coachable, and I find it hard to relate that a little bit because I'm thinking, oh God, I was such an idiot at your age. How am I going to kind of not project my own insecurities, my own behaviors on this client? So I have to be really, really careful not to do that because I was very, very delayed. How do you know if that's ADHD or just because I was?
Can I add something which might be relevant? Well, it is relevant actually. And that is that even when the prefrontal cortex reaches full development, we still have pretty good evidence that it is less well connected to other parts of the brain. Yeah. And now this is one of the reasons, in my opinion, when people talk about RSD and you hear all these statistics about how many times we're rejected as a child, etc. Yeah. It's not just that.
Not only that, no.
If you think of the prefrontal cortex as the rational brain, and the emotional areas of the brain, the amygdala, the hippocampus, as the emotional brain, thank you, they are less well connected. Now, normally, the rational brain should be able to communicate with and help control the emotional brain. So if you're in a state of anxiety and your rational brain can say it's okay, it's like the stick snake thing. We've evolved to see a stick as a snake because it's safer to. If you see a stick and assume that's a snake, you'll move away. Whereas if you see something that could be a snake and think, oh, it's probably just a stick, you might get bitten.
Yeah.
Now, in that situation, once you know it's a stick, the rational brain will be able to calm down the amygdala and the hippocampus, and you'll be able to deal with it. But because we don't have that connection as well in ADHD, even though the prefrontal cortex may develop fully, even if it takes later, it still doesn't communicate with other areas of the brain in the same way throughout the whole of our lives.
So it never says stick properly, even though it doesn't see it. Yeah, everything's a bloody snake. Everything's a bloody snake. Ding.
It is. Stick that on a t-shirt. Ding. So let's move on to the last question, which is from Jeremy. If you're ready, guys. Can one be open and honest with a psychiatrist about past self-medicating and drug experiences relating to ADHD? seems this would be very pertinent. However, in the USA, you will often hear you should never discuss this, or any chance of medication/treatment will be compromised. Open it up to the floor. Who wants to go first?
Jesus.
I think it really depends, doesn't it, on the person that's assessing you, I think. Like, I was honest in my, I mean, I didn't get to speak really in my ADHD diagnosis, but in my autism diagnosis, I was honest, and it was written in my report as well, and it was fine. But I would imagine it depends. So that's a shit answer, isn't it?
No, it's accurate.
Yeah. My personal experience, as I think I've said before on the show, is that I was very open, and I was asked the question, do you use substances? Which substances? Yeah, cocaine, blah, blah, blah. And I was asked, how do you feel on cocaine? And when I said calm, I can listen to people, Alex, my lovely psychiatrist, said, well, the stimulants will probably work for you. I have also heard from multiple people that when they said to their psychiatrist, I do have a history, I want to be honest, I do have a history of substance abuse, that they have been denied a diagnosis and support. So the problem is it's a risk. I think it does depend on the psychiatrist, their, if you like, belief system, their approach and attitude towards self-medicating with substances. And I think it's something that anybody that's in that situation would have to really think about and try and gauge the situation if you can before talking about that.
Yeah, and we would never and could never give advice on imagine we'd get sued at our asses would be sued from here to there. We can only talk about what we did, and definitely that's not a model for anybody should do. I lied about my alcohol use when I first, this long time ago. So as a pretend alcoholic, I don't drink at all anymore, but I did then, and I lied about how much because they wouldn't have given me the medication. The medication, incidentally, that saved my life and gave me the power to stop drinking. The irony. The fucking irony. And I get it, but what I also know is there's loads of great psychiatrists out there and researchers in psychiatry who are trying to change that exact thing. So they use the evidence from people exactly like like my experience to change it and to use that medication to get people off their self-medication, for example. But you got to be safe, and we don't feel safe. And that's the issue. It's a great question, Jeremy. I imagine you'll be delighted to hear that we're refusing to answer it.
Right, let's wrap it up then, guys. That was episode 164 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we talked about ADHD and social phobia, and Mrs AuDHD realised she probably has it. If by miracle you enjoyed this episode, something, blah, 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 website, Patreon, get in touch, etc.
What is the website?
Oh, something to do with the ADHD adults and being in the UK with the dot in between there. Bye-bye.
Bye all.
Bye.
Trigger warning, klaxon, 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 big klaxon. Trigger warning, klaxon, 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 klaxon.
I can't remember when I first saw him. Oh, yeah, no, I can. Oh, my God. Alex, I was going to... Where was I going? Oh, yeah, I was going to the ADHD AF event with Pat, actually, in the car. And he was telling me something, but I got so distracted because you know those things that go... Have I told you this before? I think I might have I? You know the blow-up things that go, like that?
Yeah, the waving men.
This one wasn't doing that. This one was just doing that with its hand, right? So it was a chef, and its hand was waving like that, and Pat was talking to me, and I couldn't concentrate because I just went, I won't scream now, but oh my God, look at that. And he agreed that it was fair. And then on our anniversary, I tried to take James to see it, but the shack van, it's a food truck, wasn't open, so we couldn't see it on our anniversary. But then one day when I was very, very sad, James took me and we saw it, and I cried. I was so happy. It's the most wonderful thing I've ever seen, Alex. You've got to come and see it.